I think creativity is something that lives inside almost everyone, even if people don't always recognize what their creative outlet is or how their creativity shows up. And I also think creativity is one of our best forms of communication with people because, you know, pictures are how we can communicate across languages. If you can share an image that's inside your head, you don't have to have words to put with it. You can show what's going on in your world to someone else. So I generally view creativity as like the universal language.
Connecting with art to me is usually around the intent of the artist. It's, I think, an incredible opportunity to try to understand why someone would create a particular piece. And then I'm also drawn to try to find myself or my experience in art. And so to me, it's just a great way to feel seen. So the biggest difference between AI-generated art and human-generated art to me would be some sort of personal passion or intrinsic motivation to create. I just don't think AI brings the emotional origin to art that a human does.
I just feel like AI art is definitely not as thoughtful as like what people are creating by hand because it's so easy to access and create. The pieces just aren't as like special.
There's still a certain sense of when you see a piece of art that's made by a person, you can tell that they put a piece of themselves inside that art in some way, whether it's their attention to detail or the story that that art is communicating. And I just don't know that AI art will ever be able to replicate that.
I think that AI is definitely an influence on art, whether that's a positive or a negative, I'm not sure. The positives could be that it would encourage people to think about new ways to create art or perhaps new ways to imagine scenarios. I think the bad way is that if folks feel discouraged and think, well, I don't need to create original art because I can just type in some sort of algorithm or request and it's produced for me, then that could be a negative in that folks don't feel as compelled to try to express themselves personally.
Art isn't always just going to be there and be the same, and so it's good in a sense to remind people to keep creating.
One thing that has very much surprised me since I started here is how much museums, and specifically the Eskenazi Museum, has been open to letting people get their own meaning out of art. Historically, I've always seen museum institutions as being a place you go and they tell you about what you're seeing. And I think something that surprised me is a lot of our programming is centered around just welcoming people in and letting them take what they want out of the images, you know. So we ask people like, what does this painting remind you of? Or do you have like a memory that this painting reminds you of? And tell us about that, because we want people to have their own experience with the art.